Ever feel like maybe you're playing checkers and everyone else is playing chess?
Oh, I know that feeling.
Well, today's deep dive, this might give you um, that strategic edge.
Yeah.
Maybe not in the way you'd expect. We're going to be cracking open the 48 Laws of Power.
Oh, a fascinating book.
It's a book that is both fascinating and unsettling at the same time.
How so?
Well, for me, it's like you read it and you're intrigued, but also a little bit disturbed.
Right.
So what we are going to be doing today is really getting into the undercurrents of power.
Like how it's gained.
How it's gained and, frankly, how it's often wielded.
Mm-hmm.
And not just, like present day, but throughout history.
Throughout history, yeah. Lots of good examples.
So think of it this way.
Mm.
This is not us handing you a villain's handbook.
Right.
This is more like, okay, let's understand the logic, even if it's kind of ruthless,
Yeah.
behind these laws.
A lot of them are, yeah. I mean, it's kind of by definition, right?
Right.
The laws of power.
And we will be drawing from examples across centuries.
Across centuries and cultures, yeah.
And different cultures.
Really fascinating, yeah.
So consider this your crash course in recognizing power dynamics, even if you would never use them yourself.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's really important. You don't have to endorse these ideas to find them interesting.
Exactly. All right, let's just jump right in.
Okay.
The first one that really, I don't know, it just jumped out at me. Law number 6, court attention at all costs.
Oh, yeah.
And it's interesting because it basically argues that standing out, even if it means like courting controversy, can be really crucial for just grabbing power.
Yeah, it's like that saying, any publicity is good publicity.
Exactly. And who better to embody this than, like, P.P. Barnum?
Oh, yeah, the
Yeah.
master showman himself.
The master showman.
He knew how to court attention.
Right. And he understood that even negative attention was still attention.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's so interesting because you look at his story and you see that sometimes taking a calculated risk, even bending the rules, let's say, of conventional publicity, can really put you on the map.
Absolutely. He was a master of that. And it makes you think, even today,
Oh, yeah,
how important personal branding is, right?
totally. Like, it's almost like he was ahead of his time in
Oh.
a way,
Right. It's all about crafting an image, even if it's a little, shall we say, exaggerated.
Right. Creating that mystique.
Yeah.
But this whole thing about, like, shaping perception, it goes even deeper.
Oh, it totally does.
It's not just about attention grabbing.
Yeah. And this brings us to Law 25. Recreate yourself,
Okay.
which is all about crafting a persona that really serves your ambitions.
So it's almost like you're saying you become a character, in a way, in your own life.
In a sense, yeah. And the book gives a great example of this.
Oh, yeah.
George Sand, the writer from the 19th century,
Yeah.
she actually adopted a male persona
Wow.
to kind of overcome the limitations placed on women back then.
So she used it almost like as a way to, I don't know, like transcend those limitations.
Exactly. It allowed her to gain recognition and freedom that she wouldn't have had otherwise.
That's such a powerful example of like taking a societal limitation and turning it into an advantage.
Turning it into a strength.
It seems like the 48 Laws of Power, it's all about leverage, right?
Yeah, it really is. It's about understanding where the levers of power are and knowing how to pull them.
Okay. So give me an example. What's a law that really speaks to this idea of leverage?
Well, Law 7, get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit.
Okay, hold on. Let me write this down.
Yeah.
Get others to do the work. Okay, got it. So
Yeah.
what does that mean?
Well, it's pretty much what it sounds like. It's about leveraging the efforts of other people, even resources, to move yourself forward.
Okay, so delegation, but with like a strategic twist.
Exactly. Now, I mean, to be fair, the book doesn't exactly endorse, like, unethical behavior,
Of course. Right.
but it does give historical examples,
All right,
right?
wait, cool.
Well, Thomas Edison.
Oh, okay.
He's one example, maybe borrowed a bit too liberally from Nikola Tesla's work.
Oh, right. With alternating current.
Exactly, alternating current.
Okay, so not the best look for Edison.
Not his finest moment.
But it is interesting, right? Because it makes you think this whole idea of like other people's efforts for your own advantage. Haven't we all encountered that in our own lives?
Oh, absolutely. More often than we'd care to admit, probably.
Right, but it's almost like the 48 Laws of Power takes it a step further.
Oh, yeah. It takes it way further. Law 13. When asking for help, appeal to people's self-interest.
Okay, so not to their mercy.
No. Definitely not to their mercy or gratitude.
Okay, so how do you do that?
It's all about framing, really. You frame your request in a way that actually benefits the person you're asking.
So it's mutually beneficial.
Exactly. They're more likely to help if they get something out of it, too.
That's actually really clever. I like that. It's like you're saying it's not about pleading for help. It's about making them want to help you.
Exactly. Making it a win-win situation.
And it makes you realize how many people completely miss the mark when they're asking for a favor or support.
Oh, all the time.
They're just approaching it from the wrong angle.
Totally. And the book even gives the example of the Corinthians.
Oh, well,
They tried to get help from the Athenians, but they messed it up.
how so?
They appealed to past favors instead of offering anything beneficial in return.
So they were relying on goodwill instead of like a solid proposition.
Exactly. And it backfired. They didn't get the help.
That is such a good illustration. So it's about understanding what motivates people, right?
Yes. And tailoring your approach accordingly.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
But speaking of like understanding people, one thing the book touches on is the danger of isolating yourself.
Yeah, it's counterintuitive, right?
It seems like it would be the opposite.
You think, oh, I'll be safe on my own. But actually, being seen, building alliances, it's much more effective.
Interesting.
Yeah. And Law 18, do not build fortresses to protect yourself. Isolation is dangerous. It really drives that point home.
It's almost like you become an easier target when you're by yourself.
Exactly. You become this like mysterious entity that people can project their fears onto.
Right, right. Less is known about you.
Exactly. And the book gives this example of Emperor Qin Shi Huangdi,
Okay.
who, basically isolated himself.
Out of paranoia, right?
Yeah, paranoia. And in the end, he lost touch with his own empire.
And lost power because of it.
Exactly.
Wow. So, okay, if isolation is a no-go, then what's the alternative? Like, how do you play the alliance game?
That's where it gets tricky, right?
But without becoming, like, a pawn in someone else's game.
Right, you don't want to be manipulated either.
Exactly.
And this is where Law 20 comes in. Do not commit to anyone, but be courted by all.
Oh, that's a good one. Keep your options open. Don't let anyone think they've got you in their pocket.
Exactly. Maintain that autonomy, but make yourself desirable.
Oh, okay. So it's almost like...
Like you're creating this sense of competition.
Right, and you're leveraging that attention. That is interesting.
And you know who was a master of this?
Who?
Queen Elizabeth I.
Oh, wow. Okay.
She used this strategy to maintain peace and stability during her reign.
So it's about creating a sense of possibility without making any concrete promises.
Exactly. And it's interesting because so much of this, it seems to hinge on psychology, right?
Well, absolutely.
The 48 Laws of Power, it's not just like some, I don't know, like a rule book.
Right.
It's really an exploration of human psychology.
It's about understanding how people tick.
Yes. And how to navigate those complexities.
And how to, I guess, use that to your advantage.
Exactly.
It's fascinating, but a little unsettling at the same time.
It definitely makes you think. It really is. And one of the most fascinating things, at least for me, is how it makes you see yourself as part of this larger system.
A system of what?
Well, a network, really, of relationships, influences, all those things that kind of make up power dynamics.
So it's not just about, like, your own ambition. It's about understanding where you fit in.
Exactly. You're part of this ecosystem, this court, so to speak.
And part of understanding that ecosystem is recognizing when to, like, back off, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's not always about charging ahead. Sometimes the smartest move is knowing when to retreat.
And that's in the 48 Laws of Power.
Oh, yeah. Law 22. Use the surrender tactic.
Use the surrender tactic. Okay, so what does that mean, though? Because it seems like surrendering is kind of the opposite of, being powerful.
Right. It seems counterintuitive, but that's the brilliance of it.
Okay, so how so? Give me an example.
Think about it. Sometimes surrendering, or even just appearing to surrender, can be far more strategic than just digging in your heels and refusing to budge.
Okay, I mean, I get it in theory, but do you have any examples of this actually working? Like from history or something?
Oh, sure. Think about Themistocles.
Who's that?
He was an Athenian general,
Okay.
and he actually used strategic retreat to wear down the Persian army.
Oh, wow. So he played the long game.
Exactly. By seeming vulnerable, he lulled his enemies into this false sense of security, and then, bam, he outmaneuvered them.
That's amazing. It must take a lot of, like, self-control to do that, to step back and be like, all right, I'm going to let you think you're winning for now.
Oh, absolutely. It takes guts. But that's what's so clever about this law. It challenges you to think differently, to see surrender as a potential way to win in the long run.
It's about picking your battles.
Yes. knowing when to conserve your energy, when to live to fight another day.
Okay, I'm starting to see it. So it's
Yeah.
like you retreat strategically, not just because you're giving up. It reminds me of that saying, sometimes you have to lose the battle to win the war.
Exactly. Or like in chess, sometimes you have to sacrifice a pawn to get to the king.
Okay, I like that analogy.
Yeah.
But it's not just about when to retreat, right? The 48 Laws of Power also talks about knowing when to, like, stop pushing forward, even after you've already won.
Oh, that's so important. And that's Law 47. Do not go past the mark you aimed for. In other words, victory is great, but learn when to stop.
Because you can get greedy.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the thrill of success and keep pushing further than you should.
Oh, yeah, you get that taste of victory and want more.
Exactly. But this law, it warns against that. It reminds us that, overreaching, it often leads to unintended consequences.
Can you give me an example?
Well, the book talks about King Xerxes.
Okay.
He overextended his army, against the Greeks, and it led to his downfall.
So it's like that saying, don't let victory defeat you.
Exactly. It's about having the discipline to say, okay, I've achieved my goal, time to consolidate and move on.
Don't get cocky.
Exactly. Because overconfidence can be a real trap.
So it's about self-awareness, knowing yourself and your limits.
Yes. And that ties into another big theme in the 48 Laws of Power, mastering your emotions.
Oh, okay. We've talked about strategy and thinking ahead, but how do emotions fit into all this?
Well, the book argues that to really master the game of power, you need to understand not just your own emotions, but also how to read and navigate the emotions of others.
So it's like emotional intelligence is part of the power game.
Exactly. And it can be a real game changer.
It's like we're all playing this game without even knowing the rules.
And the 48 Laws of Power, it kind of lifts the curtain on those rules.
So it gives us a peek behind the scenes.
Exactly. And one of the things it talks about is this idea of the court.
The court, like with kings and queens.
Well, it's a metaphor, really.
Okay.
Any environment where you have these power dynamics, jockeying for position, trying to get ahead.
So it could be an office, a friend group, even a family.
Exactly. It's anywhere where people are vying for influence.
So basically we're all courtiers, whether we realize it or not.
Pretty much. And to survive in this court, you need to understand the rules of the game.
Which are not always obvious.
Exactly. The 48 Laws of Power, it emphasizes this idea of indirection.
Indirection. Like
Yeah.
being subtle.
Exactly. It's not always about brute force. Sometimes it's about strategy finesse, knowing when to make your move.
So it's like you're saying sometimes the quietest approach is actually the most powerful.
Exactly. Think about it. A chess player doesn't just rush in. They plan their moves carefully. They think several steps ahead.
And they don't reveal their strategy right away.
Exactly. It's about being strategic, observant, always thinking a few moves ahead.
So what's a good example of this, like a specific law that illustrates this idea of indirection?
Well, Law 14, pose as a friend, work as a scare. That one's pretty clear.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it's about gathering information.
Yes. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
But do you really have to see it that way? Like as espionage?
Well, not necessarily. It's more about being observant, paying attention to what people say and understanding their motivations.
So reading between the lines.
Exactly. Because information is power, right? The more you know, the better equipped you are to navigate these complex dynamics.
But it's not enough to just have the information, is it? You have to know what to do with it.
You got it. And that's where discretion comes in. Knowing when to hold back, when to reveal your hand.
So it's like poker. You don't want to show all your cards too soon.
Exactly. You've got to play it cool. Be strategic about when and how you use the information you've gathered.
Because timing is everything.
Oh, absolutely. Law 33. Master the art of timing. It's all about recognizing the right moment to act.
So it's not just what you do, it's when you do it that matters.
Exactly. Think about a surfer waiting for the perfect wave, or a comedian delivering the punchline at just the right moment.
Or a politician giving a speech at a pivotal moment in history.
Exactly. It's about understanding the rhythm, the flow, the subtle cues that signal when it's time to make your move.
And that takes a certain level of awareness, doesn't it? Being able to read the room, so to speak.
Absolutely. You have to be perceptive, attuned to your surroundings. It's like having a sixth sense for these kinds of things.
So it's not just about being smart, it's about being tuned in.
Exactly. And part of being tuned in is understanding the people you're dealing with.
Which is something the 48 Laws of Power talks about, right?
Oh, yeah. Law 19. Know who you're dealing with. Do not offend the wrong person.
That sounds like good advice in any situation.
Right. You got to know who you're dealing with, what makes them tick, what their weaknesses are.
Because not everyone responds to the same approach, do they?
Exactly. Some people are more receptive to flattery. Others might respond better to a more direct approach.
It's like you're saying you have to be a bit of a chameleon, adapting your style to the person you're interacting with.
And that's where emotional intelligence comes in handy. Being able to read people's subtle cues and adjust your approach accordingly.
It's almost like you're speaking their language even if you're not using the same words.
You've got it.
Okay.
And that can make all the difference in whether you win them over or alienate them completely.
So we've talked about strategy timing, observation, emotional intelligence. It's a lot to take in.
It is, but even with all of that, there's one more element we haven't touched on yet.
Oh, and what's that?
The power of genuine connection.
Wait, I thought we were talking about the 48 laws of power. Doesn't that contradict everything we've just discussed?
That's the interesting thing. While the book does delve into strategy and manipulation, it also acknowledges the importance of genuine human connection.
So it's not an either-or situation. You can be strategic and authentic.
Exactly. In fact, some of the laws actually encourage it.
Really? Like which ones?
Well, there's Law 12. Use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim.
Disarm your victim. That sounds a little intense.
Well, the language is a bit strong,
Uh-huh.
but the point is that sometimes a genuine act of kindness can be incredibly disarming.
It's like you're saying it can lower people's defenses, make them more receptive to you.
Exactly. It's about building trust, establishing rapport.
So it's not always about manipulation. Sometimes it's about genuine connection.
Exactly. And I think that's an important nuance to remember. The 48 Laws of Power, it's not a guide to being ruthless. It's about understanding the complexities of human interaction and using that knowledge to navigate the world effectively.
So it's about empowering ourselves with knowledge, not so we can manipulate others, but so we can make more informed choices.
Exactly. And ultimately, the most powerful thing we can do is to use this knowledge to live a life that aligns with our own values and aspirations.
Whether that means seeking influence or choosing to step away from those power dynamics altogether.
Exactly. The choice is always ours.
This has been such a fascinating conversation. I feel like I've learned so much about the subtle ways in which power operates.
Me too. It's been a great deep dive.
And for our listeners out there, remember, the 48 Laws of Power, it's not about endorsing manipulation. It's about understanding the rules of the game so you can make your own choices.
Exactly. Knowledge is power, but it's up to you how you use it.
Well said. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the 48 Laws of Power. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those minds sharp.